Hey, greetings everybody. It's your man Choppadong, and I'm here on a Tuesday, April 27th, to bring you a little bit of research station routine. And what we're going to do is just walk through a system from front to back. There were a few of you guys that asked last night, how do you find those top 35 hitters, those best 35 hitters in 5 minutes or less? And I'm going to show you that today. This is just one way to use the most powerful research tool that we have available in baseball, our DFS Army MLB research station. So come along with me, grab a cup of coffee, let's sit down and let's fly, because I'm going to cover things from front to back in a normal routine that you can establish day after day, week after week, month after month to create a winning lineup and put you in the winner's circle. Here we go. The first thing that I do is I look at the Draftkings hitters tab. That opens up on default if that is what you are playing. If you're playing Draftkings instead of Fanduel, you're already set to go right out of the gate. I'm going to come up here because this tool allows us to filter and sort. And I'm going to jump over here to the time column and set a filter that only plays with the main slate teams. Now, if I wanted to play an express slate or an after-hours slate, I can use these time buttons to do just that. I can uncheck every team that is not on that slate and be left only with the teams that I want to look at for a particular slate. Super fast, super easy. Once I've got my teams cut down to the slate that I am looking at playing tonight, now I can either go position by position or team by team. If I want to find out who the best first basemen are on the slate, I click that first baseman button, and now that it is blue and everything else is white, I can hold the control key down and click every other first baseman on the slate. And now I'm dealing with only first base eligible bats. Now I can look through the position and do some selecting. But if I want to use an overall approach, obviously I just turn everything back to white by holding that control key down, or everything back to blue, excuse me, hold that control key down, and now I'm looking at every single hitter as an overall helicopter view. I start with pitchers, and I've already cut these times down myself, and I scroll all the way over here to the right, and I use the chop shop. K-score is an easy metric. If you don't know what it is or aren't familiar with it, simply strikeout matchup potential. What kind of a strikeout pitcher, a high strikeout pitcher, is facing a team that tends to strike out a lot? Strikeouts are king in MLB DFS for pitchers. They accumulate the most points. They're the most predictive stat we have. Therefore, I want pitchers that are set to strike a bunch of people out tonight. You can see it automatically brings the big names to the top: Giolito, Scherzer, Quintana, whatever. Anything over 500 is a pretty good barometer, and I like to use a combination of K-score, the spread from Vegas, who's favored to win the game, and price point here. And I want to find the best scenario of all three. I want to find a pitcher that has a lot of strikeout potential, that tends to go deep in games, throw a lot of innings, is going to win the game, according to Las Vegas, and is a cheap price. And so I'm not often paying all the way up for pitchers on DraftKings, but I'm looking for those bargain plays. Guys down here like a Montas or an Ian Anderson sometimes become playable. Without a lot of time to dive too deep today, we don't know if that's going to be the case or not. That's what you can determine for yourself once you compare these numbers. I'm looking for big discrepancies in these numbers. A jump from 6'11" down to 564 is a significant jump. Giolito has a lot more strikeout potential tonight than Max Scherzer. We know they're both studs. This is going to come down to who's facing whom most likely, and which team tends to strike out a little bit more or make better contact. And that puts Giolito in the driver's seat tonight. Probably your cash game pitcher. With such a big advantage in K-score and the cheaper price tag, I'm probably looking at reasons to take Giolito over Max Scherzer tonight. My first indicator in the K-score category tells me I should be paying attention to possibly playing Giolito over a Max Scherzer. Maybe that changes this afternoon based on my coaches and cheat sheets and things like that. But right now, that's where I'm starting, and that's what I'm looking for. When I look for a second pitcher, I'm going to do much the same thing, and I'm going to wind up down in here most likely with a cheaper pitcher. That's just how things usually go. When I'm looking at bats, that's about all I do for pitching, to be honest with you. But when I'm looking at bats, I want to find weak pitchers to target. And I can use this exact same tab to do that exact same thing. I scroll over here just a little bit. And these weaker K-score pitchers are usually less talented pitchers on the slate. They carry high Sierras, which is an indicator that if you have a high Sierra, it's an indicator that you should be pitching to a high ERA. You should be allowing a lot of runs. If you have a high whip, walks plus hits per innings pitched, again, you should be allowing a lot of base runners. If you allow a lot of home runs, that's probably self-explanatory. A lot of walks, same thing. I'm looking at these categories and I'm looking for red numbers. Who runs a little bit high in these categories for the bats? I'm looking at, well, I guess it's not always red. This one's reversed. But I'm looking down here and targeting these guys. And I want to see high whip, high home run per nine, high walk rates. That tells me that pitcher struggles to get people out. And when that pitcher struggles to get people out, I am positioned for potentially a good night. I can target those bats. I can stack those bats. And if I have that good night, I'm set up very, very well. And I found it through numbers, and I found it through research, and I found it through digging a little bit across the slate. And the pitchers that I might target on a night like tonight would be up here in the middle. Corey Kluber is apparently struggling. High home runs per nine in Fulton-Ewitz. High whip, higher Sierra in Trent Thornton. Very high Sierras in these bottom three down here at the bottom. So when I'm looking at those names, I come across the opponents that they're facing, and I see these bottom three guys: Milwaukee, San Francisco, Chicago White Sox. These are teams I might want to stack tonight. I come up here to Trent Thornton for a lot of home runs and maybe focus on Washington Nationals power hitters. I come up to Fulton-Ewitz and do the same thing with the Angels. That's a very deep lineup right now. The Angels should be in a good spot. I'm going to expect these teams to be rather chalky because, after all, these are pretty obvious. We're not digging too deep for matchups. I'm not looking at, does the guy put on his right shoe before his left shoe, or what's the angle of his arm in the slot when he's throwing a slider versus any of that type of stuff. I'm not looking at. I'm just looking at the overall general numbers here to get an overview idea of the slate and cut off big pieces of the pie and in big lump sums, big chunks. I'm doing efficient research as quickly as I can to save myself a ton of time, getting some ballpark ideas as to where that slate may go tonight. And then I'm going to let my research, my deeper research, dive down those targeted areas as the day goes on. And I'll largely ignore the rest. Okay, so I've got a few stacks that I might be interested in. I've got a couple of pitchers I might be interested in. Very, very simply done. If I come over to the hitters tab, I use another metric in that chop shop called W score. That is WOBA. That is hitters that are hitting for a high WOBA that are facing a pitcher that allows a high WOBA against, which essentially means he struggles to get people out and they hit him for a little bit of power. And as we already mentioned, there's a couple of Angels right at the top. And here are some Braves popping in here. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to, when I scroll down by that and bring the top numbers to the top, you want a high score. You want big green numbers, and you want a high WOBA score. That indicates high WOBA versus a pitcher allowing a high WOBA against. Okay, high on high is good. So what I'm scrolling over here to look for now is what teams might be popping up on this front page. See all of my LA, my Angels, already popping in there? That's a good sign. That tells me that stack with that high Sierra, high home run per nine, etc., on the pitcher that they're facing, who's at Fulton-Ewitz, and the high home run per nine might be lining up with hitters that can do damage. I would expect the Angels to be rather chalky tonight for sure, because this is a couple of indicators pointing towards the Angels tonight. I can also use my control button and take away just the Angels in these teams and see who comes up next. Looks like Atlanta, some Dodgers. There's Dodgers again. Atlanta's down here. So probably 4 Dodgers and Jeff Hoffman. I didn't see that on the pitching tab, but I see that on the W score tab carrying fairly high numbers. So I might be interested in either LA team tonight. And I'm starting to formulate where my stacks might go. Okay? So now here comes the good part. Once I've written some of these teams down, now I'm going to go into the trend tab. And in less than 5 minutes, I'm going to show you how to find the hottest hitters in baseball right now. Our trends use 2-season, 30-day, 14-day, and 7-day sample sizes. And these allow you to spot who is ascending and who is descending. I've already taken down all of the time slots and made sure I'm just looking at the main slate. And now here we go. I come over to the Trends tab in the 14-day. I use a number filter. greater than 400 WOBA. 400 is the elite number, but on short sample sizes, you can get much, much higher than that. 522 out of Mike Trout, 502 out of Matt Olson, 510 out of Nate Lau. Or maybe it's J.D. Davis. Like, my eyes aren't helping me as I scroll over here, but it's one of those two players. So here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at very, very, very hot short-term hitters. Are they going to regress? Is Mike Trout going to come back to a 407? Yes. Eventually, he will. The larger sample is going to dictate. But the 522 or 552 right now is telling me, and the 7-day 834 is telling me he's white hot. I should be playing him. I'm going to double down. WOBA is a nice number, tells you that a double's worth more than a single, a home run is worth more than a double, and it's going to award points, sort of, statistical points accordingly. Higher WOBAs mean guy hits for more power, gets on base more often, etc. But these are also sliding scales. A guy that gets on base a ton is going to have a high WOBA, and he might not hit for a lot of power. But he has such a high on base percentage that he carries a high WOBA. In baseball, home runs are king for hitters. I want high ISOs. ISO is just raw power. I want guys launching balls into the next county. 200 is an elite number here, so I come over to the same number filter and I go greater than 200. And watch how my list just vanishes. I've got 13 games. That's 26 bats, or 26 games worth of offenses and bats and whatever to look at. So I've cut everything down. If you're over a 400 over the last 2 weeks and you're over a 200 ISO over the last 2 weeks, you're on my list. Everybody else is gone. These are your top hitters. These are your hottest hitters. Could it have become any easier? All you do is set a filter in this column, and if you're getting if this is still too many, okay, raise that number filter to 410 and cut a few more off the bottom. Raise that ISO filter to 210 and cut a few more off the bottom. And that list is going to get a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter. And you can cut it down to 20 names, 25 names, 30, 35, 40 names, whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. And you take these names, Mike Trout, Fernando Tatis, Bryce Harper, Ronald Acuna, Xander Bogaerts, Olson, Turner, Castellanos, etc. And you're going to find value plays in here. Vladimir Guerrero on Fanduel is pretty darn cheap at 3,400. Come down here a little bit, 3,500 for Justin Upton in the Angels offense, and he's pretty cheap for how hot he's hitting right now. He's bringing value. His price can't catch up to how hot he's hitting right now. So you've got value. You've got an underpriced player. You take these players, you take them to the optimizer, you boost their production by 10 to 15 to 20%, and you pull more of them into your lineups, and you stand a better chance of these guys continuing to be hot for one more day. And they're going to help your lineups produce better results if they just stay hot for one more day. And I showed you this in 2 minutes or 3 minutes with some side talk. And in less than 15 minutes, we've gone through the entire slate. We've picked pitchers based on high strikeout potential. We've picked batters based on high WOBA potential, facing a pitcher that struggles. And we've just found the hottest hitters in baseball in 2 or 3 minutes that you can boost in optimizers and bring everything forward and give yourself better winning chances. It's just that simple. And this is what we teach you to do. We have the tools set to teach you to do this at dfsarmy.com for yourself. You're not dependent on me, and you can rock and roll through a slate in under 30 minutes of research, take another 30 minutes and set up the optimizer, and in under an hour have all of your lineups set to go with winning chances. Bada bing, bada boom, go win money. That's all up to you. You need to become a VIP if you're going to capitalize on these tools and unlock access to everything and cheat sheets as well. Our coaches will tell you who they picked today. You can use all of that together to formulate your own attack plan and go win a ton of money. Come on inside, become a VIP. Use the coupon code CHOP while you're here, 10% off, CHOP, and unlock every single tool and every single resource for yourself and turn yourself into a winning player. Take care, guys. Tuesday, 4/27. MLB DFS, showing you a quick rundown of the tools. I hope you guys have a great night.